Very good morning, dear students. Myself, Smita Bernadine Saldana, lecturer in chemistry. Today I am going to speak about a special course, that is bridge course. Now, what is a bridge? You all know bridge is something that connects point A to point B so that you can move from one point to the other easily. Now, most of you must be wondering, what is this bridge course is all about? So, bridge course is an additional course that helps the students to understand subjects of the next level in prayer. In education system, bridge course is offered to students at different levels to prepare them for the next level. So, for you all, this bridge course will help you to understand subjects of pre-university in prayer. So, it will prepare you for your pre-university journey. What is the need for the bridge course? Why you have to take up the bridge course? Now, what happens if you don't take up the bridge course? Now, whatever we have observed is that students till 10th standard are used to a particular format or a method of learning, which might not be so adequate for the next level. So, this bridge course helps you to understand the need and scope in change in learning patterns from the current level, that is 10th standard, to meet the expectations of the next level, that is pre-university education. Bridge course also helps you to understand and learn certain strategies. These strategies each student need to develop for their 2 years course of pre-university, for your journey in pre-university education. Now, moving on to my subject, that is chemistry. Now, when I say chemistry, suppose if I ask you, what comes to your mind the instant you hear the word chemistry? And I'm pretty sure that you all must be imagining yourself wearing a white apron, standing in a chemistry lab, holding some glasswares, doing some experiment. You're surrounded by so many bottles having colorful chemicals. There are some reactions happening. There's a color change that you see. Here there are some fumes coming, or there is an explosion. We imagine all this, isn't it? But in reality, chemistry is much more than what we actually imagine. If you clearly observe the world around you, you can see infinite number of chemical reactions are happening every second. If you clearly observe the world around you, you can see there are infinite number of chemical reactions happening every second. So, chemistry forms a part of everything in our lives. Every material in existence is made up of matter. Now, what do we study in chemistry? Chemistry is a branch of science that deals with composition, structure, and properties of matter. So, when I say every material in existence, it includes your own body also. Now, right from the moment you wake up, different activities that you do in your day-to-day life, different things that you use, whatever you do, whatever you wear, whatever you eat, that keeps you healthy, whatever it is, or your emotions, or even when you're sleeping. There are so many reactions happening in every single cell of your body. So, chemistry plays a very important role in our lives. Okay, then coming to chemistry in our daily life, I have put up some pictures here, but actually chemistry is much more than this. Now, let us see some chemical compounds that we use in a day-to-day life. Actually, every one of us will be using so many chemicals or chemical products, but here I have listed a few. So, the very important one, that is water. Water, all of us we use chemical composition, as you know, it is H2O. Coming to table salt, salt that will give taste to your food, which is a very essential component in cooking purpose. It is sodium chloride. Table sugar, the sugar that we use is not glucose, it is sucrose, and the formula is C12H22O11. Then vinegar. Vinegar is used in cooking purpose. It has got a sour taste. It is nothing but acetic acid, CH3COOH. So the molecular formula becomes C2H4O2. Then coming to one more interesting compound, that is baking powder. We are all so fond of bakery items. So the main ingredient in bakery items is sodium bicarbonate. Then soaps, whichever soap you use, soaps are nothing but sodium or potassium salts of long chain fatty acids. So whatever formula I have given here, this is for sodium stearate. So here it is C17H35COONA. Then toothpaste. You can go and check the ingredients, the chemical list in your toothpaste. There will be plenty of chemicals. The list will be very long. Here I have mentioned a few. So most of the toothpaste, they contain calcium carbonate in them. There will be sodium fluoride, sorbitol and other chemicals. Bleaching powder. Bleaching powder is sodium hypochlorite. Chalk that your teacher uses is calcium carbonate, limestone. Then the battery acid. You must have observed that for inverters they add some type of acids. So that acid is sulfuric acid. Now in addition to sulfuric acid, they also use distilled water. So these are all chemicals or chemical compounds that we use in our day-to-day life. Now moving on to the body composition. I already told you every material in existence is made up of matter, and you know very well our body consists of around 60% water. 16% of protein we have, minerals are around 6%, carbohydrate 1% and 16% fat. A person like me must be having more. Okay. Now the two important or essential elements in our body are oxygen and carbon. So oxygen is 65%. The next element is carbon, that is 18%. There are other elements also such as hydrogen, there is nitrogen, there is calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, sodium, chlorine, magnesium and other elements. Where the percentage composition is mentioned here, it is less than 10%. So our body is full of so many elements with so many wonderful reactions happening. Most of them include chemicals. Then coming to hygiene, chemistry in hygiene. Now during this global pandemic crisis, that is COVID-19, there is a increased interest towards hygiene, health and sanitation. We have started washing our hands very often. We are using sanitizers, maintaining social distance, keeping our surrounding clean. So there are so many chemicals or chemical products. Some of them I have listed here. You can add more to this list. So these are all chemicals or chemical products that helps us in maintaining hygiene. So for example, toothpaste, as already mentioned, there are so many chemicals or chemical substances used in toothpaste. Toothbrush, if you consider, the brush is made up of a polymer. Even the bristles in the brush is either nylon or polyester. That is also a polymer, a product of chemistry, synthesized material. Then dental floss, deodorants that you use, cotton buds, diapers, hair brushes and combs, hair shampoos and conditioners, hand sanitizers, all sorts of lotions that you use, soaps and body washes, laundry detergent, toilet paper. So all these, they help us in maintaining hygiene. Moving on to production of food. Now, can animals produce their own food? No. We can only cook our own food. We depend on plants and other animals for food. So, plants have the capacity to synthesize their own food through a process called as photosynthesis, regarding which you must have studied already in detail in your biology classes. Now, during photosynthesis, there is a chemical reaction happening with the help of sunlight. Plants will make use of carbon dioxide and water, and they will prepare glucose and releases oxygen. So, the food that is produced here is used up by plants as well as by other organisms. So, chemistry plays a very important role in the production of food also. Now, coming to baking, we are all very fond of bakery items, isn't it? The fresh, the fluffy things that we get, or the taste that we get there, the appearance, they attract us so much. So, one of the main ingredient used in the baking industry is sodium bicarbonate. We call it as baking soda. Now, this is not the only chemical that is used. There are so many other chemicals. I have listed a few here. These are used in the baking industry. So, in baking also, chemistry will play a major role. Then moving on to digestion, you must be wondering, digestion actually comes under biology. What role chemistry has to play in digestion? Now, the moment you put the food in your mouth, there are so many chemical reactions happening. Okay, normally the food that we take are either in the form of carbohydrates, or they contain proteins, or they contain lipids, that is oils and fats. So, depending on what type of food you take, different reactions start happening during digestion. Now, for example, if I eat rice, rice is nothing but carbohydrate. It contains starch. So, the saliva contains a particular type of enzyme called as amylase. Now, what is enzyme? Enzymes are biocatalysts. They catalyze biochemical reaction. Now, if we carry out a reaction outside the body in a test tube or in a reaction mixture, we will be using a substance called as catalyst to increase the rate of the reaction. But in the living system, you cannot add some external substance. Instead, in body, the enzymes will act as catalyst. So, your saliva contains this enzyme, that is amylase, which will break down the starch into maltose. Then as the food moves into different parts of the digestive tract, maltose will be broken down into glucose finally with the help of enzyme maltase. Then your body will absorb this glucose and use it for different purposes. Now, if you are consuming proteins, the enzyme protease will convert proteins into amino acids. And if you are consuming lipids, the enzyme lipase will break down lipids into fatty acids and glycerol. So, chemistry has a very important role to play in digestion also. Talking about emotions, see, sometimes we feel happy, sometimes we feel sad, sometimes you may feel relaxed, but sometimes you feel stressed out. Now, there are so many chemicals that are produced in your body. They are called as neurotransmitters. We call them as chemical messengers, which are responsible for different types of emotions. So your brain will control all these. So here I have listed 4 chemicals, rather hormones, that are responsible for the emotions. The first one is serotonin here. You can call it as happiness hormone. So when serotonin is secreted in your body, you feel happy. It will give you confidence. This is responsible for memory also. Now, in case if a person has less secretion of serotonin, then he will experience depression. So serotonin is considered as antidepressant. Now for example, the happiness that we get here is like eating a chocolate. Now what happens when you eat a chocolate? You don't feel sad, isn't it? You feel happy. So that happiness we get because of this chemical. Coming to endorphins. Endorphins, it is happiness plus plus. That is, it makes you more happy. So whenever you are very happy, it is because of this chemical endorphins. So whenever we are very happy, sometimes you must have observed, you can do little extra work, but you don't feel tired. So that is because of this chemical, that is endorphins. Oxytocin. Talking about oxytocin, it is a bonding hormone. So oxytocin helps us making social connections, social bonding. It helps us in communication. So you must have heard like people saying, whenever you speak to somebody, you have to look into their eyes. So what happens when you look into the eyes of the person and talk? It increases the bonding. It makes the communication better. So remember, next time you look into the person, it is a secretion of oxytocin in your body. Then one more is dopamine. Dopamine is considered as reward hormone. See, sometimes in our life, whenever we do some good things, we get rewarded for that. So when you get rewarded, what happens to you? You feel happy, you get a kind of pleasure. Because of the rewards we get a kind of pleasure. The pleasure that we receive because of the reward is due to this chemical dopamine. So next time, whenever you come across similar situation, your mind will stimulate you to do the same thing so that you get rewarded and you get that pleasure in you. So this is regarding emotions and different chemicals. Now in addition to this, there are plenty of other chemicals that are secreted in your body which are responsible for different types of emotions that we face in our day-to-day life. Talking about rust formation. Now the word rust is used in particular for iron. Generally in the case of metals, we use the term corrosion. Corrosion is loss of metal, any metal, in the form of its oxide due to some chemical reactions happening. Now you must have observed whenever an iron article is exposed to moisture for a long time, you see a brown color coating appearing on the surface of iron material. So this is called as rust. Now formation of rust is a electrochemical phenomenon. Now when I say electrochemical phenomenon, it will involve so many chemical reactions. So there are some oxidation reactions and some reduction reactions. During oxidation, electrons are lost, and during reduction, it is the gain of electrons. So when iron is exposed to moisture, at one point of iron rod, oxidation reaction takes place. So iron loses electrons and it will form Fe2+. Further, this Fe2+ will be converted to Fe3+ by loss of electrons. Another part of the iron, reduction reaction takes place. It uses oxygen from the atmosphere and the H+ ions we get from the moisture that is present in the atmosphere. So they combine to produce water. that water combines with the Fe3 plus ions that are produced and it will form hydrated ferric oxide. This hydrated ferric oxide is the brown colored compound, what we call it as rust. So during the rust formation, iron will be lost in the form of its oxide. So in rusting also, there are so many chemical reactions that are involved. Then we'll try to answer some of the questions, whatever phenomenons that we see around us. So some examples I've taken under this. Now you must have observed whenever you chop onions, or you must have observed your mother chopping onions, she will shed tears. Now what is responsible for the tears? Why onions make you cry? Now in onions there are some stable compounds called as sulfates. Now when you cut onion, what happens? You're breaking the cells. The cells will release alliinase. This will be finally converted into a compound, chemical compound, that is propane thiol sulfoxide. This chemical stimulates the cells in your eyes, and because of this you start shedding tears whenever you chop the onions. So next time when you chop onions, try to remember the compound that is responsible for the tear. Then when I consider hotness of chilies, okay, why chilies are hot and spicy? Here in this case also, there is a chemical substance that is responsible for hotness or the spiciness of chilies, that is capsaicin. Capsaicin is a chemical that is responsible for the hotness. Next time you take a bite of the chilies and you feel that hotness or you feel that spiciness, please remember the chemical responsible, that is capsaicin. Now what this chemical does, it will stimulate the areas in your skin or in your tongue that senses heat or hotness, and because of that you get that hot or spicy taste when you bite the chilies. Moving on to tomatoes. The ripe tomatoes are having bright, beautiful colors. So as tomatoes grow, initially you must have observed there will be green in color, slowly it will be changed to yellow, and ripe tomatoes are bright red in color. Now what is responsible for the color in tomatoes? Here also there is a chemical that is responsible. The pigment that is responsible for the color of tomatoes is lycopene. So when the tomatoes are green in color, it will contain chlorophyll. You know, chlorophyll is one of the very important pigment that is present in plants, which is responsible for green color in plants. So that chlorophyll will be broken down into, or it will be converted into other carotenoid pigment. So in the case of tomatoes, the red color is because of the chemical lycopene. So like that, you must have observed in other vegetables and fruits also, there are different colors. Now for example, if I consider beetroot, beetroot has a bright, nice color. The color of beetroot is because of the chemical betanin. So in every vegetable, there are different chemicals or different pigments that are responsible for the color. Now if I consider carrots, now carrots will come in different colors, different shades. If I am considering the orange colored carrots, the orange color in carrot is due to the chemical substance that is beta carotene. So like this, in different vegetables or in different fruits, the color is due to chemical substance. Then let us see why lemons taste sour. The taste of lemon again is due to a chemical that is present in lemon. You know, lemon belongs to citrus family. We call lemon as citrus fruit. Why it is called as citrus fruit? Because it contains an acid that is citric acid. So the citric acid is responsible for the taste of lemon. So like that, if you consider apple as a sweet taste. So in the case of apple, the sweetness is because of the chemical sorbitol. So like that, if I consider grapes, ripe grapes, they will be having a sweet taste which is different compared to the taste of apple. So in the case of grape, it is because of the chemical fructose. So like that, in different vegetables or in different fruits, the taste is due to different types of chemical substances. So next we shall see why ice floats on water. You must have observed, like especially in the winter season, areas where temperature is very low, the streams or the rivers, lakes are covered with ice. But underneath there will be life. There will be water, and that water contains aquatic organisms. Now ice normally floats on water. What is the reason for this? Now whenever solidification happens, water undergoes solidification or water solidifies, it will expand. If you see the actual structure of ice, there are some empty spaces in the structure of ice. Density of ice is less than density of water. Now what is density? Density is mass by volume. So volume will be more. So density of ice is less than density of water. And in the case of ice, there are strong hydrogen bonds between the molecules. These are very stronger compared to hydrogen bonds that are formed in water. And because of this, ice floats on water. So like this, you can try to get answers to so many questions, the different phenomena happening around us on the basis of chemistry. Next, moving on to the experiments. Now chemistry is incomplete without the experiments. Here I'll be discussing about two experiments. One I've taken from qualitative analysis, the other experiment is from quantitative analysis. So the first experiment that I'm going to speak is the flame test. Now, qualitative analysis means you're detecting the type of element present in the given compound. Now for example, inorganic salt is given to you. Now when I say salt, it is not only sodium chloride, there are so many inorganic salts. They're the combination of radicals, cations and anions. Now in these salts, there will be metal ions. The metal ions will impart particular color to the flame. So what we do in the flame test is that we prepare paste of the salt. The paste of the salt is prepared and it is held to the flame with the help of a glass rod or a platinum wire. It starts imparting different colors. Now depending on the colors that you see, you can identify the metal ion. Okay, so here I've taken chloride salts. All of them are chloride salts. Coming to lithium chloride, when you hold the paste of lithium chloride to the flame, it will start imparting, because of Li plus lithium ion, it will impart red color to the flame. In the case of sodium ion, you will get yellow color or golden color imparted to the flame. Whereas if potassium is present in the given salt, it will impart lilac color. Rubidium will impart red-violet color and cesium will impart violet color to the flame. Coming to calcium, calcium will impart brick red color. Strontium, if it is present in the given compound, then it will give you crimson red color. Barium will impart apple green color to the flame, whereas copper imparts blue-green color to the flame. Metal ion, that is thallium, it will impart green color to the flame. Depending on which color is imparted to the flame, you can identify the particular metal ion that is present in the given compound. So this is about flame test. Next, I am going to speak about quantitative analysis, one experiment. We are very fond of the color change experiments, isn't it? So here I am going to speak about titration. Now, titration is a quantitative experiment. This is used to measure the concentration of a solution with respect to the other. So now in this experiment, we'll be taking two solutions, out of which one solution's concentration is already known. It will be given to you, or you'll be knowing the concentration of that solution, and the second solution's concentration is unknown. So you're going to calculate the concentration of the unknown solution with respect to the concentration of the known solution. Solution whose concentration is known is called as titrant, and the solution whose concentration is not known is called as analyte. Apparatus used here are, you will have a burette. This is a stand, iron stand. This is a conical flask, and you use pipette in order to transfer the solution, that is analyte, into the conical flask. So a known volume of analyte is pipetted out into the clean conical flask, and you are going to fill the burette with titrant. Now we add some chemical substance called as indicator to this analyte. Now the indicator, what is the function of that indicator? Indicator helps us to identify the end point. So at the end point, that is when the experiment completes, there will be a color change. See, for example, initial state, you can see analyte is colorless. At the end of the experiment, because of the indicator, there is a color change. Now for example, if I am carrying out acid base titration, I am using a strong acid and a strong base. Example, I can consider HCl is titrated against sodium hydroxide. Imagine you know the concentration of HCl, so that will be taken in the burette, and you want to calculate the concentration of sodium hydroxide. So that will be taken in the conical flask. Now for this titration, we can use phenolphthalein as indicator. Now this phenolphthalein, it will give pink color in basic medium, and it will be colorless in the acidic medium. So what have I taken here in the analyte, that is in the conical flask? It is sodium hydroxide. Now what happens the moment I add phenolphthalein to this? Color of the solution becomes pink. Now I will carry out the titration. I perform the experiment. At the end point, the pink color changes to colorless. So that is the end point, that is where you need to stop the experiment. Then depending on the formulas that is available, you can calculate concentration of the analyte. So this is also one of the very interesting experiment, that is titration. Next we shall see different branches of chemistry. Actually, chemistry can be classified into various branches depending on different bases. Okay, but here in this picture, I have divided chemistry into 5 branches. So talking about the first branch, that is organic chemistry. Organic chemistry is the study of carbon compounds. So carbon has some unique properties. One such property is catenation. Catenation is self-linking capacity of an element to form chains or compounds. So because of this catenation, carbon can form innumerable number of compounds. So those compounds are studied under organic chemistry. The second branch is inorganic chemistry. Now, elements other than carbon are studied under inorganic chemistry. But you have to remember, there is no clear distinction between organic chemistry and inorganic chemistry, because under inorganic chemistry also we study certain compounds that contain carbon. So here I can tell you, any compound or any element which do not form CH bond, which cannot form CH bond, is studied under inorganic chemistry. Third one is analytical chemistry. Analytical chemistry is applicable in industry. It has got lot of industrial application. So here it is analyzing the composition of different substances. Then coming to the fourth branch, that is physical chemistry. Now under physical chemistry, using the principles of physics in chemistry. So in physical chemistry, you have things like derivation of equation, or there are numerical problems like that of physics. Coming to the last branch, that is biochemistry. Now, when you consider a living system, any living system for that matter, there are so many processes happening, different types of processes happening. For example, if you consider your own body, there are so many processes like respiration, digestion, circulation, or it may be transporting the molecules from one part of the body to the other, passing the messages. So there are so many complex reactions happening. Studying the reactions taking place in the living system comes under biochemistry. Next we shall see scope of chemistry. So now here I have noted down few points. The first one is supply of food. Food is very essential to us. It will provide nutritional supply to organism. Now to grow the food, what do we use? To grow the food or to get better yield, we use fertilizers. Now some examples for fertilizers are urea, ammonium sulfate, calcium superphosphate, sodium nitrate, etc. are all chemicals. Now in addition to fertilizers, we also use insecticides. To kill the insects, we use insecticides, or to protect the crop from pests, we use pesticides. Again, these insecticides and pesticides are chemical or chemical compounds. Then to increase the shelf life of food, we use chemicals called as preservatives. Now preservative, for example, in the preparation of pickle, you use sugar or salt. Oils, different types of oils are used in the preparation of pickle. All these are chemicals. Now one more example for preservative will be sodium benzoate. So all these things that are used to grow food or to protect it are chemicals. The second scope is contribution to improved health and sanitation facility. Now it has become a trend, washing hands more often, giving more importance to health and hygiene. We use sanitizers. So under this, I am going to discuss about some of the life-saving drugs. Now you know, for different types of diseases, we use different types of drugs. Drugs, nothing but chemicals or medicines. So some of the life-saving drugs or life-saving medicines are cisplatin or Taxol, which are used for cancer therapy. Then there is a chemical called as AZT, azidothymidine, that is used to help the AIDS patients. Then nowadays you must have heard of this HCQ, that is hydroxychloroquine, anti-malarial drug. So like this, there are plenty of life-saving drugs. Now in addition to that, Other medicines, some terminologies I am going to discuss here. One is analgesics. Analgesics are painkillers. They abolish pain. Antipyretics. Antipyretics are the medicines given during fever to bring down the body temperature. Now this, when you consume, when you don't have fever, in that case it will not bring down your body temperature. Then antibiotics. Now all of us at some point of our life have consumed antibiotics. Now what are these antibiotics? Antibiotics are the class of antimicrobial drugs. So these are nothing but antibacterial drugs which are used against bacteria. Then tranquilizers. Now tranquilizers are the chemicals used for the patient having mild or severe type of mental disorderness. Then antiseptics. Now whenever there is a cut or when there is a wound in your skin, what do you apply? The substance that we apply is antiseptics. So next one is anesthetics. Anesthetics are the chemicals used during surgery. So either to make the patient completely unconscious, or it will remove the sensation at one particular part of the body which is undergoing surgery. So anesthetics are the chemicals used during surgery. Coming to sanitation. Now under sanitation we have disinfectants. Now disinfectants are the chemicals used on inanimate matter. So you cannot use this on the skin. So this is used to wipe the floor, or to wash the floor, to wash the glass, or to wipe the other surfaces, but this is not used on skin. It will be corrosive for the skin, hence it is not used. We use antiseptic on the skin. This is on inanimate matter. Then insecticides. Insecticides are the chemicals used to kill insects that causes different types of diseases. Then moving on to the third scope of chemistry, saving the environment. Now using chemicals or chemical products is very easy. It is so comfortable, it is very easy, but after effects, we are facing enough effects already. So now there is an area which produces eco-friendly or environmental friendly chemicals. So these are used to conserve our nature. So there is scope for such chemicals also. Next one is increase in comfort, pleasure and luxuries. Now whatever comfort that we experience in our life is due to the development in science, or it is because of discoveries that are made in chemistry. So some of the example for this I can consider synthetic fibers. The cloth that you wear, the beautiful colorful cloths that you wear, most of them are synthetic ones. For example, we use nylon or rayon or terylene, dacron. These are all synthetic fibers. The fibers are given beautiful colors with the help of synthetic dyes. So using dye, you can not only color the fabric, it is also possible to color plastics or papers, etc. Next one is building material. Building materials, what do we use under this? Steel or the cement that we use, they're all chemical products. Then supply of metals. In our day-to-day life, we use so many metals. We use gold, silver, copper, iron, aluminium, zinc. The list is endless. We use alloys also in the preparation of coins, or in the preparation of vessels or articles, utensils. The metals also have application in agricultural and industrial machinery. So next it is articles of domestic use. Now at home we use so many chemicals or chemical products like detergents, we use oils and fats, sugar, paper, glass, plastic, paints, cosmetics, perfumes, cooking gas. All these are chemicals. Entertainment. Now coming to entertainment, now in cinema or in simple cameras, they'll be using some kind of films which are coated with celluloid or other types of chemicals. So they are also chemical products. Then fireworks, they look so beautiful, bright and beautiful. They are again nothing but chemicals. Transport and communication. All different types of transport and communication makes use of fuel, that is either petrol or diesel. Then coming to nuclear atomic energy. Energy that we get from the atoms is either due to nuclear fission or nuclear fusion, or it is by nuclear decay reaction. So this also involves the principles of chemistry. The next one is scope in industry. Now, there are so many industries that make use of chemicals or chemical principles. Some of them are glass industry, cement, paper industry, textiles, leather, dye industry, paints and pigments, petroleum industry, maybe sugar industry, plastics, pharmaceutical industry, polymer. Like this, the list is endless. In all these industries, the chemical principles are used. The last scope, let us see scope in war. Okay, in war, we use either explosives or poisonous gases. So explosives used in war are trinitrotoluene, nitroglycerin and dynamite, and the poisonous gases used mustard gas, phosgene and other things. So this is regarding scope of chemistry. I would like to conclude my session with a short story. Once a gentleman was walking through an elephant camp, and he happens to spot that the elephants were not being kept in cages or held by the use of big chains. Now what was holding them back from escaping the camp was a small piece of rope which was tied to one of their legs. Looking at this man was completely confused, and he thinks why the elephants are not using their strength to break the rope and escape the camp. He was so curious, now he wants to know the reason. So he asked a trainer nearby why the elephants were not just trying to escape from the camp, why they are not using their strength. Now the trainer replies, when they were very young and much smaller, that is when they were calves, this trainer used same size rope to tie them, and at that age it was enough to hold them. Now as they grew up, they were conditioned to believe that they cannot break away. They believed that the rope could still hold them, so they never tried to break free. What do we learn from this? Most of the time in our lives, we face obstacles and they try to hold us back. We feel like giving up, especially in our studies. Sometimes you feel that a particular subject is very difficult, you feel like giving up. We think that it is not possible for us. Sometimes I think I cannot do it. So such thoughts will come. Whatever it is, you should always continue with the belief that whatever you want to achieve is possible. Believing in yourself is very important to achieve success in life. Now with this, I wish you all very best for your 2-year pre-university journey. Thank you.